What's up, everybody? It's Igo. Today we are going to do a deep dive on the new Xenoblade 3 trailer, going frame by frame, and we're going to be doing this in the new series on this channel called Chain Attack with my friends Jackson and Jalen, who are avid Xenoblade fans and know a lot about the game. We're going to be breaking this down just step by step. This video is going to be really long, so sit back, grab a snack, and enjoy. Okay, so what were y'all's just initial first kind of thoughts looking at this trailer when you first saw it right out the gate?
You know, it was a lot of hysteria and excitement.
Yeah, waking up in the morning and seeing July 29th, I was just like, oh, okay.
You know, my personal friends IRL, they know that I won't shut up about it, so hey. And including these two.
Yeah, the direct definitely came as a surprise, I think, to all of us, especially me, considering I thought the game was going to come late, but it didn't, which is great. But another thing with this trailer, too, is they've given us so much more information than I would have anticipated them to ever feed us in a trailer. And so there's so many things to just break down and look at here. So let's just take a look here. All right, so this is the first look at anything we get in the trailer, which is a brand new character, which I think took a lot of people by surprise. Her name is Ethel. She's aligned with Kiev. She appears to be Homs. She's allegedly allied with Noah in the gang, but sees the party as shadowy figures. So we assume that something's going on with this eye, possibly, that's making it hard for her to see. But we'll get into that eye later, as this eye may have different implications. Other than just her vision. So what do you guys have so far on her, and what do you think about her?
First of all, very attractive woman. I know people already simping over her on Twitter. That's what I see.
Yeah. It's kind of like her appearance is kind of odd to me because you know, if you kind of like cut off the top of her head, I would tell you she's a Hyentia, which I don't think that's actually the case. I don't think she's actually part Hyentia. It's just kind of odd. We don't really see that for a Homs design.
It's been like generations, and like depending on like genes and stuff, you could still be Hyentia, but like the wings could be like completely cut out at this point. Because we later see a character that has like basically like tiny wings, smaller than like Melia's and Uni's.
Dude, look how clean this looks too. Like,
yeah,
there is not a bit of aberration in her hair and the eye line. Like, the game looks super clean.
Oh yeah,
what I want to look at the shot of is...
Oh I didn't even notice.
I can't find this. Yeah. So she's got two swords. No. She stands a lot like Morag, actually. But definitely not Hyentia, we can assume, based on no ears here. Not ears, wings. Oh my... Jeez. Not gotten enough sleep recently, but one thing we do want to talk about here is that that party is covered in this like shadow effect, and we're not sure what exactly happens to be going on here, but one of the lines that Noah says is, "We're your friends," or "We're supposed to be your friends," and for some reason she sees them differently, although I think it's funny that the Napon in the back are totally normal.
Yeah, I think
they're totally normal, but the rest of the party is blacked out. I think it's just because they're members of Ouroboros.
Yeah, or the Napon are pulling the strings, and I don't know. Like it.
And so
well, neither of them are named Fauna, so I think we're safe.
Yeah.
And something to kind of talk about here, right, is whether or not this may have some kind of relation to the Fog King, since its corruption was the same purple aura. We still haven't seen anything about that necessarily in 3. And Future Connected, the ending of it was pretty vague. We don't exactly know what's causing this fog. It could be a lot of things. It could be the Fog King, because they like to make connections like that. It could be something completely separate that just happens to do with this chick's connection to the Ouroboros. Maybe people who aren't Ouroboros look at them and see them differently. We're not entirely sure what's going on there.
I do have a personal theory, but I would like to get into that later, because that kind of goes into stuff later in the trailer.
I see.
There's like another small thing. People think it also looks like the Phantasms from Xenoblade 2, you know, during like the Chapter 7 fight before big things happened with Mia.
In the Spirit Crucible?
Yep, that one.
Oh, by the way, if I haven't said this already, there's going to be Xenoblade 1 and 2 spoilers, because that's just how this video is going to work, going through Xenoblade 3 and kind of talking where the storyline is going to be placed. So, if you don't want spoilers, click away now.
So I could spoil both games rotten, right?
Yes. Now you can.
All right.
They've been warned.
Okay.
Nia's the blade. Okay, let's go.
Right.
God.
So the next thing we see, and we'll talk kind of, as we see these giant mechs, which isn't too big of a deal, but we see this guy, who's another new character here. What's his name?
It's Isarugi.
Isarugi, that's right. Yeah. So Isurugi, as far as we know, is a tactician for Agnes. He appears to be a blade. And
you
what's
can see
interesting
that- you can
about
see the
him
visual.
is Ethel's right eye is red and his left eye is red. And again, we'll get more into the eyes later because they have to do a lot with the fusions, we assume. And I think it's probably some relationship with the fusion. I think him and her probably fuse, but they're related to separate countries, so I'm not entirely sure how that works.
We can get into that a bit later too.
Yeah, a lot of this trailer is stuff that we kind of get ideas of looks into in the beginning of the trailer, and then as the trailer goes on, we get kind of a deeper look into how all of this works. So the next thing that kind of happens here is we're seeing the party running from this giant mech that's shooting lasers. We can see someone up here. I assume this is Ethel, just in better lighting from behind. I don't know who this is. This man to her left.
Yeah, the hair looks like Isurugi's.
It could be
they shouldn't be on
Isurugi,
The outfit doesn't.
but I don't
They
feel like
wouldn't be
he
on the
dressed
front.
that dark. That's what, I'm kind of wondering. I'm also questioning, since they are from different countries, but they may fuse together, if both of the countries have banded together to try to kill Ouroboros,
It
but it
does
seems
say
to be that
that.
they're
It does
both
say
in
that in
war.
the trailer. If you look at the subtitles right now, they actually say we're being chased by both nations at once.
Right, and that's what
Maybe-
I'm getting at.
Seen as like maybe the party seen as like a common enemy or something like that.
Right.
But
They seem to be just kind of attacked by everybody. And so there's the giant machine, which I mean,
Quick aside, the machine designs in this game are so good.
they're super cool. But look at that thing's face. What does that look like to you?
that's definitely
It's
like a
a metal
Kadess
face.
type. Yeah, that's like Kadess type thing.
It looks like something straight out of Xenoblade 1, but a lot bigger and a lot more scary. But yeah, I think they're trying to make a lot of connections to the old games here. And right after this, we get a look at our first shot of the battle system. And there's a lot of things just to look at on this one screen. And so let's just kind of start here from the top. We can see that all of the arts over here to the right side are all assigned separate buttons like they were in 2, but then we also see this tactics session over to the left where we have the interlink, which has the Ouroboros symbol. For those of you who aren't familiar, the Ouroboros in Xenoblade is the snake eating its own tail, which we'll get into that interlink button in a minute here. So we have glow ring, which is a target lock. We also have wide slash, which is a kind of evade, which we kind of have an idea that we might be able to evade in this game through like rolling, but we have a very general, familiar looking setup here as far as the actual like UI of the battle system works. And if you look up the right hand corner, we can see how many enemies are attacking us at once. That's kind of handy. Sometimes you may get surprised by an enemy in Xenoblade from behind, and so having something to kind of view like that is really nice. But the first thing that I immediately noticed when we opened into this UI is we have 6 characters on screen. We've never had a party this large on screen, and later we have 7 with a rotating characters slot.
Yeah,
And so
we
this
had
is crazy.
4. We had 4 in X, which was already like a little insane. I thought 3 was a very balanced party for Xenoblade 1 and 2, but I'm excited to see how 6 party members works out.
I think that's why the enemy like number is up on the top right, because you already have to keep track of 6 enemies, or 6 party members. So if like more enemies jump in or anything, it's gonna be a lot to like keep your eyes on. So
Yeah, no kidding. Because in Xenoblade, you can be fighting up to 4, 5, 6 opponents at a time. And some of those smaller fights are even fights in the wild. And so that can be kind of daunting. And we also notice here that the party gauge is replaced by the chain attack symbol, which is nice to see chain attacks come back. I love chain attacks because the animations just look super sick. You can also do a ton of damage with them. And we'll get into the chain attack system later in the video. There's another spot where they show it where I want to kind of talk about the point system that they're using in order to build up the chain attacks. The chain attacks can also be activated while in fusion mode, which if you're not familiar with fusion mode, that's the big transformation that happens when they interlink. We'll get into that in a little bit later. So over on the bottom right here, we have our different attacks, right? So we can see Sword Strike is a side break. Edge Thrust is a back attack. So now we also know that we have attacks that are directional and do probably more damage or apply certain status effects depending on which direction you attack your enemy from. And they actually give us so many different shots of the battle system UI in this, and I'm gonna do this in another video. I'm gonna take every single screenshot of the battle system. You can probably compile all the characters and their individual attacks and figure out a lot of the battle system just from these screenshots. We're not going to know exact like damage numbers or certain effects other than, oh, it does a side break or an AoE. Speaking of breaking, we are going to have the whole break topple lock. Dazing is coming back in this game, and I'm sure that's going to be something that's different statuses based on different characters and different roles. And there's going to be different advantages to toppling and launching versus toppling and dazing. Or you may, like in one, be able to topple and then daze, or however they decide to do it. We'll get into that a little bit more. There's also a green symbol here if we go a little bit further. Oh, so here we have Mio's attacks, which you can see she takes a lot of aggro. I'm not sure if that's...
She's a tank.
Yeah,
she's
no,
a tank,
no,
which is kind of ironic for a tiny little girl. Because I would have expected Lance to be the tank of the party, but you can also look over in the left here, and you can see your DPS shields for your tanks, and then the greens for like support characters.
It's gonna be like 2 DPS, 2 healer, and 2 defense per like nation, or like, you know, for like the whole party, because like 1 of each for S and 1 of each for
And
Agnes.
so it's 2 parties of 3 essentially that are combined, and they're showing us all 6 in the trailer, but there is a high chance that before these 2 parties meet, that we could be running 2 separate teams of 3 on their own individually, going back and forth in the story until they meet. That's something they could do in the story that would actually be pretty neat, I think, to have some character development before they come together within the story. And then, you know, you get the full 6, which is a whole new ordeal. The health bar looks familiar. There's nothing there. Now, so the general combat, it looks a lot closer to 2, not only with this art style and the button layout, but we also have canceling shown when Mio performs Butterfly Blade. So if we take a look at that animation here, which we'll see in a second. So here she's activating Butterfly Blade, and it's canceled, although it's kind of hard to tell because it goes into another cutscene here. But also we'll notice something we talked about, we're going to talk about, is how much less damage we're seeing, right? They're in the level 20s. In Xenoblade 2, they'd be doing quite a bit more damage than this. And I think this just has to do with damage scaling because we have 7 party members on the screen at a time, or 6 to 7. That many party members is going to do a lot more damage than 3, so they're probably doing that just to balance the game out. Although when the fusions start, that damage dramatically increases. There's also a dash evade mechanic that it seems to be present, which is more a push towards like action-based gameplay. Hopefully that's not how evading works entirely though, as things could get a lot slower, especially like in one where evading did a little animation and stopped you from using art. That is a big problem if you're not able to use the arts you want to use immediately in some scenarios. Now, something I do want to hint at here when we're looking at this battle system, right, is there seems to be no implication of us being able to swap characters on the fly, and we don't see anything in the UI that would give us a impression that you can. And this is a bit of an issue, as you have 6 characters on screen and you can only control 1 of them. Your influence on the battle is pretty damn minuscule. And now we do have this tactics button over here to the left where we may be able to do certain controls with the battle, but as you can notice in this screen, it's actually blank, which is something to be mindful of because here we have different arts, and so these may be based on affinity or other links. We see this guard here over to the right. I think that's just a targeting system though.
I think what that side menu means is that when you hit ZL, you can, if you remember in Xenoblade 2, in Xenoblade 1, I believe as well, you could hit that button and you could have, you know, enemies target, or your allies target one enemy. You could have them, you know, retreat, whatever. So I think if you hold ZL, that'll change the left menu to do that. Otherwise, it appears to be that you can populate at least 2 of those 3 segments with different arts. So you can have more arts than you did in Xenoblade 2. You know, slightly less than 1, but it's a good compromise so you don't have to like go across the battle palette in the middle of battle to just select a whole bunch of arts. You can have them all in the face button and D-pad.
No, I think the left side of the arts, like go back to like if you can go back to the Noah battle real quick.
Yep.
So I think that like, so yeah, there's nothing that shows that we can switch characters on the fly, but as you know, each character comes in a pair basically with like the Ouroboros and all that. So what I'm thinking is that the left side is for your partner, like the canonical character's partner arts, because if you look at it, Noah has like all the sword stuff, but like the left side of the art says like glow ring and wide slash, which has an evasion thing, which is closer to Mio's playstyle. So maybe it's more along the lines of like Mio's arts are on the left and Noah's arts are on the right.
I considered here too is we may have seen something similar to like the system in Torna, where you could swap between your duo characters. And I think that'd be a great way to do this, because then you don't necessarily need to swap characters like between all 6, but you could at least swap between those 2, and that would still give you a pretty decent influence on the battle that's happening. And it's hard to tell if there is like a front attacker and then like a rear support, kind of similar to the Blade system. And we'll look more at the combat system later in another portion of the video, where you can see all 6 actively attacking and doing something, and they're not just standing there. And so I don't know how true that is. Now let's talk about something that absolutely threw me for a loop, and I feel like caught most people off guard, is this guy. Like, this guy came out of nowhere.
Thought, oh, Percival's back. That's great.
I thought
he looks
bigger
like
than
nothing
that.
else from these games.
Hey, yo, hold on.
I thought even bigger than that.
Where's that zoom in on his face?
That is Groff Xenogears.
Like, check out this guy's face. He is scary, bro.
Horrifying.
He's probably the scariest thing we've probably ever seen in Xenoblade, at least appearance-wise.
He's probably not the main baddie, but also like his form looks like an Ouroboros form.
Probably
so like
a metal face of this game, where like he'll be pretty big, a big bad in the start, but once the game unfolds, it's just like, oh, whoa, okay, everyone's evil, sure.
He also looks like an Ouroboros too, so like, because I've seen some comments and like he has a towering figure over even Lambs, who I'm probably guessing is the tallest character in the party. So like, I think he's also an Ouroboros. We just don't know who's the two people fusing.
And if you notice, he has 2 red eyes, which with very prominent circle patterns. We also saw 2 other people with red eyes, and I don't know, maybe that has something else to do, or something to do with it.
I was gonna say, I have a feeling he's some kind of fusion. The way this fusion speaks makes me feel like whenever they fuse, whoever's inside of this thing is possessed by whatever the fusion is, the Ouroboros or whatever is kind of in here potentially. It also kind of looks like Graf from Xenogears, or like,
That's the biggest reference that I was like, yeah, that's Graf.
And something that this scene in particular, we can kind of imply brings on, I'll just run the trailer here, is we see those blades. I want to remember those blades. We're going to talk about those later. So we kind of see how these guys are fighting and using the cutscenes of this game, by the way, look super cool. Oh, there's another really good shot of the blade. So there's that yellow blade. We're going to talk about that later, as we're going to see that right in Uni's face. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about fusions, for those of you who don't know, who haven't seen the trailer. So Bio and Noah here are going to combine together to fuse into this thing, which looks a lot similar somewhat to this other big monster guy. I don't know, we'll call him Percival for now. And if we can kind of look on the side of this fusion's heads, the fusion here kind of looks like it has red eyes on the side of its head. And something we want to look about while they're fusing too, I don't know if it's in these shots. Their eye color does change. Now there is blue here, but later on we're going to see red eyes during the fusions. Let's see if we can catch a shot of that. I think it's right after this, potentially. Also, that thing is huge.
Yeah, this thing is just straight up Veltal. It's like Veltal and the Bionis had a baby.
So now we get more of the fight system. We have 2 enemies here, and that's how we kind of figure out this counter is enemies. We have different abilities showing up on screen here, and we're using, I'm assuming,
so Noah and Mio are like the leading characters.
Think it's so Noah and Mio, they're fused right now up in the top left, and we can see this warning meter. We're going to talk about that in a little bit.
It's
actually, we can talk about it now.
Well, I just want to mention first that it's interesting to me that the fusions don't have a name. It's not like, oh, this is Neo or Moa. No, this it's just Noah and Mio. I
I don't think we
wonder.
need to give the shippers any more bait.
I just
feel like
wonder
there's
how they're going to refer to the enemies
Right.
In the den, because there's
I think
we're clearly
they'll
going to be
just
fighting
like
against
four
these people
boards.
too.
I have a feeling they may try to name the individual like combinations between these characters. There's also, they don't show this in the trailer, but there's also a potential that you could mix and match different characters. Like you could take Noah and Lance and build like, I don't know, some even crazier attack tank or something.
It's just odd because all the fusions we see in the trailer are
Yeah.
between opposite nations. So
And-
we see Noah and Mio, we see Yuni and Tyon, we see Lance and Senna.
Right.
So I think
And that could go back
it's
to
like
even
two
like
story
Ethel and
connected for-
Isaruki.
Yes, exactly. That's kind of where I was going with that.
I think it's a little too connected. Like I don't think we'll be able to like do like I don't know Mio and Lands or anything. But I think like there's gonna be enough here for like a lot of customization. If we'll see later.
Oh, totally.
But I think story connected for like I think the pairs we get are the pairs we get.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat where I think it takes like way too much development time to make a unique combination for every party member. But if we do have just these pairs, we can get really crazy into different arts and combos, whatever.
As you
Also,
can-
so
yeah,
watch
also right here.
watch what happens when that attack lands. Look at all the status buffs that start getting applied.
Yeah, your comment on the low damage earlier, like I feel like this is where you get your damage from.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
I
definitely where we
suppose,
get our
like, a
big
little
damage. Also, take a look at this warning meter. As this goes up, and we learned this in a Twitter post earlier today. When this warning meter maxes out, you're done. You're done. That fusion mode is done. And I don't know what happens if this maxes out, whether or not it does damage to your party or what. I assume though you probably want to end the fusion before it hits the end of that warning meter, which is probably why there's a cancel button. There's also a chance that you could fusion, cancel it, your warning meter might only be a quarter of the way, do it again, in a later portion of the fight, it gets like halfway, and use it intermittently throughout the fight to create certain arts combinations during the fight. But obviously we're not entirely sure because we don't know what all things are doing. You could also, I don't even know, there's that cancel button. I feel like there's all sorts of arts canceling and buffs and different things you can mess with by canceling your fusion halfway through.
I do want to say that officially it's called overheating when you max out the warning meter. The last time we had someone overheating in a Xenoblade game, to my knowledge, is Charlotte. So just wanted to point that out. That's
Good.
pretty interesting.
Also, what is it? So on the left side of the what is it? The Ouroboros form. If you look at the interlink symbol, it has like a little gauge going up. I'm guessing that's how you like level up like just the form.
The
'cause
interlinks.
If anybody,
Level.
yeah, the people that play
Yeah.
Gears in Saga, like if you you can level your gear up mid fight, and I'm pretty sure the mechs are the same way in Saga. I haven't played that one yet.
Well, I'm kind of thinking it's the same way how you leveled up specials in Xenoblade 2, where
Maybe.
just doing more arts would just charge that up. And then if you notice, the Phantom Slash art has a special ability at level 3. So I think if you just build that up, your arts become stronger and
Right.
you do more damage, but you're closer to overheating. So it's a risk reward system.
And we'll get into TP later, but I actually know how this gauge on the left is filled because I analyzed the footage of it. This gauge is filled using TP points, and there's different types of TP points. We'll get into that in a little bit. But let's take a look here at the fusion between these two. When oh, there it is. I skipped it. That red eye. Well, now his eyes are naturally red, but we
Yeah.
see a glowing eye still. And it's on the opposite sides of their bodies, and so I assume the eyes definitely have to do with the fusions, which this Uni-Tyon fusion is the only fusion that looks remotely like the characters, and it's got giant wings we can see on the left here. And some big swords. It's definitely high Intia.
It takes more from Uni than Tyon at
Yeah,
like,
it
mostly.
definitely takes from Uni. The one on the right, I can kind of get big, lands, because it's big and beefy.
I mean, Senna, the character-wise, likes to lift and
Also,
stuff too. So maybe.
Jalen commented on how the Twitter's gonna have a riot about this, and they did. How the cores here, what these kind of spinning energy balls here are. We have one here in the chest, one here in the chest. That one's in the crotch. They just had to place that differently, which I think is
Indeed.
just kind of funny. let's continue kind of looking through here. Evaded accuracy down. The warning meter is much higher here. But take a look at the arts here over on the right. We have an interleak level 3. And so, but it appears like we can use that. But we only have interlink level 1 here on the left.
Yeah, I believe it's just a bonus effect at level 3.
I think it might just do more damage and do the effect, because otherwise you'll just be doing the damage.
Yeah,
That could be true.
I think it's probably just an AoE attack otherwise.
But look how much more damage we're doing. Almost 3 times as much damage as we were doing
yeah,
earlier.
it's ridiculous.
Also, we can still apply status effects like breaks, topple, and all of that while in this form. And that's something
Speaking
to
of
keep
what,
in mind. Right,
This
is
one
we can
combo
apply
right
a
here
break.
does the entire does the entire topple lock and then launch combo. That's like one of Jin's moves from
Hold
like when
on
you
a
were
second.
talking to for a bit. He did the
Oh yeah, I
entire
didn't even
break.
notice that.
Topple.
yeah, he
launch.
did the entire driver combo and
They
probably
did an
smash.
entire driver combo with one fusion. You know how busted that is?
Wait,
That's
was
insane.
that
But also,
using-
look at their warning meter. It is totally maxed out. Watch what happens when it hits the end. It cuts. So you don't know what happens when they overheat. Because it
I guess
cuts to the
you
next
just,
seed.
I guess you just kind of like split apart, kind of like Dragon Ball, where you just kind of bust out and just kind of have to go back fighting normally.
I feel like there's got to be a punishment though if you
I'm
overheat.
telling you, Charla, my rifle is overheating. You gotta stop for a couple seconds. I don't know, that's my theory.
Okay, so then we also have, where is it? So Noah in the city where time is frozen, and he clearly looks much younger here. I mean, he's a whole he hasn't even hit puberty yet, right? He's like a whole foot shorter. And time is stopped. This could be Earth. It could be a city in the orbital ring potentially, and this is what's happening when the two worlds collide at the end of Xenoblade 1 and 2. I kind of feel like this might be in the orbital ring though, because we see like the atmosphere of Earth here kind of in the background, but I wanted to hear y'all's thoughts on this particularly, because this has so many story implications as to who Lands is.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because like this appears to be a flashback sequence, so maybe it's not even supposed to be taken literally. Maybe it's just Noah just got knocked out and he's seeing some vision through some Alvis type figure. You know, it's very interesting to think about.
I also see like the color scheme of like the torn down Elysium from the end of 2, so maybe it could be like one of the cities from just that area before like everything went terribly. That could also mean that like Noah was around before like 2 even.
Mm-hmm. Something I think is kind of funny about this shot though is like all of the Nopon are like in biker jackets.
I wouldn't have it any other way. I love the Xenoblade 1 Nopon.
Okay, so check out this shot of what some people are assuming is Melia. I'm not even so much worried about that. I'm worried more about the ion looking thing behind her.
I'm more worried about the fact
that
she looks like a dick.
Oh. Melia's just going through a goth phase, bro. Had to go all black.
Tyrea's the one who did this to her.
Yeah. No, she got rejected by Shulk. You know, she was kind of in a bad state. You know, goth Gia.
Yeah.
I mean, how can it not be? The hair, the wing size. I mean, it's gotta be her, right? So then we kind of get a look at
in the relationship chart. It only specifies like the Melia and Nia characters as Queen and Agnes and Kavess. I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever, man.
Yeah, they're definitely not giving us that information. Also, check out this giant robot. We're gonna fight that thing at some point. That's gonna be a fun fight. Also, the Yuan Tian ship. We're assuming that this is Nia, but it's hard to tell because the hair coloring is a little bit different, but the size, the height. I've looked at her character model. Some of the lighting is very similar. Now we get a look at Isarugi here, and his eye isn't red. And so I'm not sure if the eyes are only red during the fusions or if there's some other status effect that causes them to be red. We also have this character. Do we have a name for her?
We don't have a name for her specifically, but they mentioned a name Nimue, who that name isn't really assigned to anyone, so that could very well be her name.
Could be her. She's got a little horn
she
here.
died though. Yeah, they mentioned she kind of died, like from what Isarugi said.
Yeah.
But
she could be a Laura type character. You know, we really don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's frozen in ice and everything. Come on.
Dude, this guy is so terrifying looking.
Yeah, I want a model figure of this dude.
Oh yeah, the
Oh, we
multiple
also have
rows of
this
teeth.
character here, who appears to be Gormati. We have the ears, colored hair, small build. She's got an archer. Oh, this is an important scene to chat about. So watch his arm. It's hard to see, but his arm like literally detaches for like a second. And catch the frame of it.
I think that's just an in-between frame you caught.
Yeah, it's just an in-between frame. But anyways, we see his Noah's sword go from that onto his arm and transform, and we see that the base of the actual sword just looks like a regular sword, right? Or there's just some kind of tech that's attaching this to his arm, which we can then kind of get into the discussion of, do you think there will be some form of Xenoblade in this game, like an all-powerful, all-going sword? Yes.
I think eventually. I don't think this one's it.
No, yeah, Noah's sword is most definitely probably just a custom, like, you know, that sword probably
'cause
isn't.
At the very end of Xenoblade 1 and going into Future Connected, Shulk had a replica Monado that was made using Machina technology.
Right.
And at going into Xenoblade 3, the Agnes Nation, they've been kind of developing their ether tech a lot. So it's very possible that this could be a very similar sword to the Monado or the Aegis sword or something. Just it's not, special.
Yeah. They can manufacture Monados now.
Yeah, and something to kind of get at too, right, is Shulk at the end of Xenoblade 1 kind of decided that he was going to get rid of God. While the Xenoblade swords weren't necessarily gods, they had the power very much of gods, and he kind of did away with them. And so it makes us kind of wonder where are Pyra and Mithra and Rex and the old party? What happened to the two parties from the old games after the world collided? How long has it been? Because we were looking at Melia, or what we are assuming are Melia and Nia potentially. We know that High Entia obviously live very, very, very long lives. Nia, though,
Flesh eaters live for a long time too.
Flesh
Jin's
eaters
been alive for
live a
500
long
years.
time, but how long they live is obviously we don't know.
Yeah.
It's at
We don't
least
know.
500.
It's kind of
At least
implied that they're
500 plus.
functionally immortal, but like we don't know for certain. So
I mean, if it's not like a perfect flesh eater though, then they just start breaking down like Mino.
oh yeah, definitely.
Rip. Okay, so here's a neat shot. Why is my name on here? So Uni is clearly being targeted for some reason. She's on some kind of list or something to be killed. She's very confused about it. She's obviously very distraught and upset because, I mean, she has this giant yellow blade in her face, which we kind of assume is maybe that graph-looking thing that was attacking them early in the trailer, because remember, I said remember those yellow things on his arms? This is what I'm talking about.
I mean, I think the background looks similar enough to like the other area too. That's why I just kind of made that assumption, and that's why it's like maybe like Uni's getting attacked and then Noah and Neo fused to get her out of that situation.
Right, and that's totally possible here. It does seem to be the same background. It's really dark. It seems to be nighttime. We see this kind of glowing around her eyelashes. Not sure if that's from fusion or from this blade or what's going on here entirely. We also see this shot, which is really neat. So this is Valdi. I'm going to assume this is like Lance's little brother.
I suppose.
He's at least a younger Machina. Probably
Yeah,
just
definitely a
couple
younger
hundred years
Machina.
old.
But then we see
Okay,
this little robot
Speaking
over
of
here.
speaking of like younger, every character except Neo is confirmed to be 18. Which, if you know anything about the races of like Xenoblade 1 and 2, that should be literally impossible.
Yeah, that's odd because an 18-year-old Machina should just be like an infant.
Yeah.
Hey,
interesting.
maybe it's like a Machina human mix.
Maybe
We don't
so.
know.
These Machina definitely look more, I guess, fleshy than their Xenoblade 1 alternatives.
I
don't
also
know if
think
that's
it's
due
just
to.
Psycho style. I think it's
Yeah,
just
I
Psycho.
don't know if it's due to a change in art style, updated models, whatever, but it is kind of interesting to know.
Mhm. They definitely do look different, which made it. I remember when we watched the announcement trailer, we were like, "Is Lance Machina? Is he something else?"
Yeah, exactly.
Is he like
I think most
Machina's
people settled
redheaded
on Machina after
stepchild?
2 weeks.
There's definitely some weird stuff at play as far as their appearance. But something to look at this little robot protecting him is he clearly has influence over this robot. And if we look at the two robots on screen, the bigger one and the smaller one, we see similar looking design, ether lines. So we can kind of assume that they're built off of the same technology. Now, this blue shield that we see this little guy raise is very similar looking to Lance's shield when he's protecting the party. And so this could be a form of potentially a artificial blade. But as far as how he got the information to build an artificial blade, though, I think is where something can get kind of interesting, as if there's stolen tech between the war, or if at one point the countries were friendly with another and then started a war, or if it was just head-to-head at the start, which I doubt, because countries have to establish themselves usually before trying to make war with one another. And then we do get a better shot of his face here. So yeah, so definitely looks like a Machina, but the face is softer. It's not quite as metallic or robotic looking. Also, check that shot out. Look at that! Look at these mechs. They look sick.
Yeah, the mecha part of Xeno is definitely like full force.
It's in full force, yeah, exactly.
Like,
we got a samurai-looking one.
I really hope we get to, like, obviously we get to control the fusions, but if we can control a giant mech, that'd be
we can get some
pretty dope.
Xenoblade X going on in here.
Oh, so there's a shot of Ethel. Oh, so now we get to take a look at our... Oh, before I go to this, we do have two new Nopon in this game, because you always have to have one in your party. We'll just take a look at them here.
Yep.
So we have Manana on the left. That's the little pink one. She literally fights with like a pot and a pan.
Pot lid, yeah.
Like it's pretty aggressive and funny.
I love her.
Yeah.
But then the other Nopon looks like he walked right out of the 80s and they gave him a gun.
Yeah. Okay, so like it actually,
the Nopon gets it good.
I think it's fine somewhat, because like if you look at like the little relationship chart, Riku's a mechanic, so you know it makes sense he probably has like a piece, and then Manana's like just a straight chef from the army. So.
And something to note here too is they're paired together.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
We'll talk about the rotating slot here in a second. I think it shows it here in the next frame, actually. So here we have Xeon, who's a high Entia, but look how tiny his wings are, right? So we can assume some kind of high Entia, maybe half-breeds, or the bloodline has just decreased
it's like
to the
a
point that the
one
wings are little. But then you look at Uni, and Uni's got
1.83.
huge wings, which Uni could be like Melia's daughter, maybe? Or something, I don't know. It's hard to assume who these characters are based on the little information we have.
You start seeing everybody in different outfits and weapons now, like after this shot.
But this rotating slot is definitely important. This is also where we figured out we have Days again, right up there. I love dazing enemies, which I think is super dope. We can also see she's a
I hope the
healer.
one-shot kill comes back, because that one's a lot of fun to play.
We can also inflict sleep if you look over on the left.
Oh, here's something really interesting. So if you look at the middle art for both sides, and seeing how they have like a little link tether between them, that's where I'm thinking the fusion button comes in, the ZR button. And they can fuse into like a super strong art or something like that.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, no, I noticed that. I was like, because I thought interlink was like probably the actual character fusion button. And you even see more of the tethers on top and bottom now.
Yeah.
I think...
Yeah, so
I don't think those are tethers. I think that's the lines from the actual gameplay if you look like over here to the left and the right. I don't think those are tethered.
Shot too, though, so because like the interlink on the left D-pad is definitely like the button you use to fuse into the Ouroboros storms. So there has to be another reason for that fusion button. It even has the Ouroboros symbol.
Yeah.
on the
Also
left
check
D-pad.
out all these blue numbers. That has to do with what we'll get into in a second when we look at the chain attack system, which we'll see here in a second. Also, I mean, what in the Persona reference is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's straight out of Persona 4.
Like they didn't even like try to hide it. They just put it here,
I mean, this is definitely a post Persona 5 game, so hey.
which I think is funny. But so let's There's a lot on this screen. There is a lot on this screen.
Yeah.
So let's walk through it slowly.
As a quick aside, we can notice that the different characters, they all have different roles. We see that Noah's a support role, Uni's a tank now. It's not important for now. We can get into that later. I just thought it was interesting because you start seeing.
I'm glad the roles are
I didn't even realize that their roles were different now. So nice, because I was so worried about the freaking TP system. So
everyone could be female is all I'm taking from this.
If we take a look at the bottom left, we can obviously see that they all have different roles now, but they also have numbers above them, which is their current TP. We'll talk about that in a second. We assume that the chain attack order is from left to right on the bottom, and we'll notice here too that there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Am I counting wrong?
7. There's 7 party members, but Mio's currently attacking. That's why her card's not
Okay,
there.
I was like, why is her card not at the bottom? Anyway,
Probably-
so
they
the
probably-
roles in battle are different now, which is kind of interesting. And the top right, we also see Brave Assault for Noah, and it says tactical points, which is that TP, the tactical points, and the gauge is currently at 0%. As we do the chain attack, we gain TP. See now how it's at 50. So we gain TP. I assume when this gauge completely fills is when we get to actually use, and I think they show it here in a second, Brave Assault. And what looks
I love the Brave Assault splash because it's
Also-
just the blade combo.
So
splash.
notice that he's wearing like Tyon's clothes, and Tyon is a support character, right? And so I feel like maybe they swap their weapons, or by swapping their clothes, they change their that's how they change their roles, potentially.
Definitely.
I really love that as a customization concept because I feel like that works a lot like the weapons in Xenoblade 2, where like any party member can use any weapon type pretty much, but they all have different arts for all the weapons. So
I just really hope there's like an appearance thing like in Xenoblade 1 or X where you can just like set an appearance to somebody so you don't like their outfit but like their weapon works for you better, or just like small thing.
I like
There's
tactical
also a bunch of bonuses added onto this, so you can actually see it better in this shot. So we do have affinity in this game. Battle affinity is a thing, and so we get battle affinity points. We get fusion points to fill our fusion gauge. During this, we get roll match TP. I'm not entirely sure what that applies to yet. And if we look at the next one, so another thing I just want to hint at with the TP is we have different types of TP. So if we look here, we have battle affinity. We have affinity coming back in this game. We have health TP, which I assume adds to our health. We also get an added health bonus at the end of this chain attack. It also tells you how much TP you've like accumulated total on the screen here. And as we go through these frames, what are the things you're going to notice? And this shot flashes really fast, so you have to frame by frame this or it won't show up. You get hero TP. No idea what that does. Maybe it's for the individual character you're using. You get force match TP. No idea what that is. Roll consistency. No idea what that is. Lowest. I don't entirely know what all of these numbers mean, but there's some of them we can obviously just assume, like the ones that go to affinity and health are health bonuses. And I assume that this TP, as you collect it, can also be used potentially to restart your chain attack or continue to keep the chain attack going. Although we don't know if we can continue the chain attack after using the Brave Assault. That's coming up here on the right. We're also seeing significantly higher damage numbers, of course. And we get no block TP. That's an interesting one I didn't catch earlier. Bonus TP +1. So in this game, there seems to be a lot more of a point system and regarding to buffs. Like we see increased effect TP, right? So this battle system is going to be a lot more math than our previous systems. And so it may be similar to Xenoblade 1 and 2 as far as what you physically have to do as the player to play through the game and actually make the combat system work. But as far as understanding this combat system on a deeper level, there is going to be a lot of number crunching and a lot of frame peaking in your own footage if you're going back and playing and trying to figure out what's the best combo for this damage-wise. because some of these pop up so quick that you can't even see them. And something about Lance wearing Tyon's clothes just looks so wrong.
That's Noah. That's
Alright, I'm all backwards. Yeah, that's how messed up that did my head looking at that.
I also, if you want to go back a little bit to that screen, if you look at the top right where it says tactical points 50%, I think that could be a thing like in Xenoblade 2, where you could continue a chain attack and get a full burst and then just do tons of damage. It could be when the TP meter fills up, you just big damage and end the chain attack. I don't know. We don't have really any confirmation of that. I don't think either one way or the other. But
I don't think they're ever gonna give us confirmation on that until we play through the game and we have to figure it out on our own. It's something to note that it does say attacks during chain attack gain 70% chance to bypass defense. I don't know if that's in the actual game's UI or if the editors of this video just put that in there for us to use.
No, that's definitely in the game because
But it looks like it's in the game.
A lot of Xenoblade 2's like blade skills tell you like cardinals and stuff, so this is nothing new.
Also, check out, if we look at the background of the shot, just kind of like the landscape. Brave Assault, that looks so sick.
Yeah, no, this game looks good. This game looks so good.
Poor Alvis is getting wrecked. The only thing I don't like about this shot is the way it's framed. You can't actually see the enemy until like the second half here.
It's probably just doing like a camera pan around like what the full burst did in 2, because like the camera
overkill.
Like,
and we're seeing overkill come back.
Yeah,
overkill's back, meaning that like speedrunners like Nell could probably breathe easy.
So now we get to look at this Vandom looking character. The only thing that can change all of this. And this thing looks like a ball.
To be Vandom now.
No, this dude's name is Vandom. Just probably not the same Ryan Vandom, but I think they're just using like
maybe it's just named after Vandom. And we see this shot of Mio, Noah. Continue to keep going through the frames. I don't want to talk about this shot yet because I want to talk about, where is it? Something to kind of talk about when looking at this new version of Vandom is he basically looks identical, but a little bit younger. His hair is a lot more brown than gray. But he seems to know more than he initially kind of lets on. And from the first trailer, everybody kind of assumed maybe it was some kind of reincarnation, or maybe Vandom never died in the first place, although we saw him die, so we can kind of assume he's pretty far gone, especially considering he's Rock's core crystal when you. And then something that he says here is, you are the only thing that can change all this. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously he's referring to the kids, but he's also, slamming on this bomb. And I'm wondering if this thing is some kind of device that affects time? Or maybe how the Ouroboros function, or what this thing's done. So obviously, this is very end-game cutscene, so we're not going to figure that out until easily the last, third of the game, maybe even quarter. But
Vandom always has to play martyr in these games at this point.
He's obviously a mercenary at some point, and I can guarantee he's probably going to die like the first Vandom. They're going to make you like him, and then they're going to kill him.
He's more mechanical.
Vandom 1, I think, lives fine. I haven't played X, so I don't know how Vandom and X goes.
X was the commander of, the Blade command center, but he wasn't, 1 and X's Vandom weren't very important. I think 2 and 3's Vandom are, story important, though, so,
Definitely.
Yeah. And then we have this really sick shot of the whole crew, and the Nopon are involved, so they are going to be long-term party members.
So
and we can kind of see all of their weapons, which looks super dope. I mean, look, check out that gun. Check out that gun. That thing looks sick. Because it glows, right? And it looks a lot like Melee's staff, but it's also got a freaking gun attached to it. I don't know. I think the character design of this game is so damn good. The characters just look super cool. Some of them have ether lines, which is dope. These things look so much smaller when they're not next to a person. Which I think is really funny. Oh, here's the shot I want to talk about. So this notebook So the line that she says here, that Mio says, is not that I have all much time to spare. And she's holding this book that has slash marks on it. It's obviously in a language that we can't read, although it kind of just looks like cursive English, but it's hard to read. But we obviously see these boxes crossed off, and I can assume when all of those boxes are crossed off, my first assumption is she's dead. She just straight up dies. Or my second assumption is Xenoblade's usual thing that the entire world just goes to riddance and is destroyed. But I have a feeling that the Ouroboros that they have that allows them to fuse and all of that business is slowly killing them. That's probably why there's a warning meter and they can't hold that form for very long without overheating. And so this may be an implication to them not having very long lifespans, or they're definitely going to, you know,
It
die
only
or
seems like
something.
Mio's the only one affected though, because like
That's
the rest
what's
of the
weird though, is it seems like Mio's the only one, and so I wonder what caused Mio to be this way. There's also a chance that what if she's an unstable flesh eater?
Essentially, if,
like
if she's Nia's kid, maybe like
if
being
she's
a flesh
Nia's
eater,
kid, Nia's kid got really sick, so she
or just
became
being a
flesh eater or
child of a
something.
flesh eater can mess you up.
Yeah, I imagine. We don't know how flesh eaters have flesh eater reproduction works.
Yeah.
I think-
Wait,
I
So
don't
it might
think-
get a little weird. I don't know. Maybe
I don't think
flesh eaters
Monolith
can
will ever tell us how. I don't think Monolith will ever tell us how Blade reproduces.
I don't think they want to. I don't think they
No,
want that.
not any further than the whole like evolving into Titans and then
Yeah.
hatching new blades from that.
She also says finding a path that lets us live. I'm not sure if this is referring to the fact that she's obviously going to die soon, or that she's trying to save her whole party, although she does have the line, like, I'm going to save them all at the very end, so she intends to save everyone in the party. A lot of people
It
are
might-
simping over this shot on Twitter.
Of course.
This
Senna
shot,
Senna has
I think,
a
is
shot
really
there
cool.
too. Senna has a shot there.
But look at all of like the kind of ether in the air. It
They're
kind of
also
reminds me
all in their
almost of
battle
like
uniforms.
the Saddle Marsh, almost.
Tutorial Marsh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
No, they're all in their
kinda
battle
like that
uniforms
shot.
too, so probably early on.
This is probably pretty early in the game. We see the
Yeah.
logo show up, which I feel like they should release a like a background that looks like this. That's got the logo and this in focus down here, because obviously it's kind of out of focus in the trailer. And then we get the release
Oh
date.
my god. July.
Which nobody's gonna see any of us three for like a month, because we're not gonna eat, sleep, or drink, or do anything other than
I
eat, sleep,
already
and
put
breathe
my
the
days
sky.
off in for work for those
And
days.
then we get the collector's edition. This, read the top chat, or read the top letterbox here, everybody. Collector's edition will be available exclusively. Remember that word, exclusively on the Nintendo Store. That means you will not be able to pre-order the collector's edition on Amazon, Best Buy, GameStop, wherever the heck you usually get your games. It's not going to be available. You are going to have to get this on the My Nintendo Store. So,
I feel like this
go
is
follow
something
at
to do-
Nintendo UK on Twitter.
Or Nintendo
or
America.
Nintendo America. Turn your notifications on.
Actually, no. Don't tell them to turn it on, because like that means
Yeah,
more
I will.
competition for us. Yeah, that's more
Okay,
competition
okay.
for us.
I feel like this has something to do with Xenoblade 2 special editions, and to a lesser extent, but like still kind of Xenoblade DEs, where they were just
Yeah,
kind of
no
like
problem
sitting in
telling them.
stores for a while, just kind of going on clearance. I feel like they're like, like this is a big game, but like not as big as a Mario or Zelda. So maybe
Also,
they just
I
don't
feel
want to
like
put in the
Maybe it just
unsold
might be like a
inventory.
big.
Yeah.
This might be just the thing they're doing for COVID now.
It could be. Who knows?
I
Anyways,
hope-
if you want a collector's edition, be on the lookout. Grab it while you can. I imagine these are going to go fast, as the past 2 years in particular, Xenoblade has blown up all over the internet. And I'm going to change camera angles here. So, the past 2 years, Xenoblade has exponentially grown in popularity. There's a lot of people who are picking up the games way after they released. And part of this push came from Xenoblade 1 being re-released on the Switch. A ton of people picked it up. and then they got into Xenoblade 2. And if you played 1 and 2 all the way through, well, you're probably down the rabbit hole because you're watching this video this far in. And so you know, the game has gotten exponentially more popular, and with guys like Chugga Conroy playing through the entire game, and channels like Anel and so many other people who are covering this game, it is now a very big deal. And so if you want Xenoblade 3, pick it up, as I imagine it's going to be flying off shelves. And if you haven't played Xenoblade 1 or 2 yet, I highly suggest you do. If you want Xenoblade 2, get it as fast as you can, because that game is going for, on eBay, anywhere from $100 to $200. People are scalping the hell out of this game because they haven't made new copies, and it just keeps selling. And so, I mean, you can always get a digital copy if you're into digital copies and you're okay with that. I personally am a physical collector, because then if any of the eShops or whatever close down, and then my Switch breaks and I can't access the game or the shop anymore, or something else happens, I have a physical cartridge. Physical cartridges almost never die unless it's the Game Boy and you have to change the battery out inside of it. And so just be aware of those kinds of things. Get physicals if you want them. And play through the first games. They're really good. They're very approachable. Now, if you don't really care and you just want to play the third game, I mean, have at it. But I doubt you got this far in this video if you're only interested in the third game.
I think Takahashi did say you could technically start with 3, but it's like, why would you?
Right, and I'm sure you can. And I'm sure they're going to explain things and give some flashbacks, right? But I'm willing to bet that if you start with 3, and then you play all the way through 3, the flashbacks, whatever kind of explanation of the story from 1 and 2, like, you're going to be intrigued enough that you're going to want to go back and play those games. And this may also beg the question, if Xenoblade 3 does really well, if they'll make a, how do I put it, like a trio collection, so like all 3 Xenoblades in one game.
Oh, like a box set, or
yeah, like a box set, or like a Xenoblade.
I don't think Nintendo's
collection.
big on trilogies. I don't think Nintendo's big on trilogy collections. The last one, big one was like Metroid Prime, and we know how that's going right now.
But it'd still be a cool idea. It'd still be a cool idea. They could also, with this push of another Xenoblade game, if Xenoblade 3 goes really well, Xenoblade X, please. I've been begging you Monolith for like 2.5 years. Oh yeah, that's something to talk about. I was gonna talk about that. You just reminded me. I forgot. The Game Awards themselves on Twitter mentioned Xenoblade 3. That's how.
So either
if that's not a testament to how much more popular Xenoblade has become, I don't know what is. That the Game Awards are looking at our next Japanese RPG. Even they're horny for Xenoblade. Even they're pumped and ready for this game to come out. The three of us are very, very excited for Xenoblade 3. This is also a new series on this channel. Again, it's called Chain Attack. It's just going to be the three of us idiots talking about this game. We'll have lots more videos coming out regarding content on the game, especially once the game comes out. We're going to be going bananas talking about stuff. And I'll also, for those videos, have an easier time making the videos because I'm going to have specific footage, and so are they, that we can pull up, we can look at during the podcast and talk about it and discuss what our findings are with the game. We can talk about the story, we can talk about the combat system, we can talk about different exploits inside of the combat system, because Xenoblade 1 and 2 have their fair share of those. Speaking of which, if you want to check out some of mine, you can go check those in whatever playlist it is. I'll have it linked up somewhere in the top.
Turtle locking.
Anyways, we're going to end it there because this thing is getting way too long. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one.